Hello friends, welcome back to Prince Rajesh's free English class. Please subscribe the channel and enable the bell button next to it. Today we will have CBSE Class 10, English Chapter 5, Glimpses of India, Part 1, A Baker from Goa, line by line explanation from First Flight book. A Baker from Goa revolves around the relevance of a baker in the Goan culture, which dates back to the time when the Portuguese ruled over the city of Goa. The Portuguese may have left, but the bread makers continue to have an inevitable stature. In this story, the author recalls his childhood days and their excitement on seeing the baker. They were enthusiastic to the point that they would run to him as soon as they woke up, without even brushing their teeth. Let us see the first passage. Our elders are often heard reminiscing nostalgically about those good old Portuguese days, the Portuguese and their famous loaves of bread. Those eaters of loaves might have vanished, but the makers are still there. We still have amongst us the mixers, the molders and those who bake the loaves. Those age-old, time-tested furnaces still exist. The fire in the furnaces has not yet been extinguished. The thud and jingle of the traditional baker's bamboo, heralding his arrival in the morning, can still be heard in some places. Maybe the father is not alive, but the son still carries on the family profession. These bakers are, even today, known as padder in Goa. In our first passage, the story takes us back to the time when Portuguese ruled Goa. They were immensely famous for their breads. The narrator often finds his elders thinking about those good old days and telling them that the famous breads date back to the time when the Portuguese ruled over Goa. They ponder over the past and tell them that though the Portuguese have left Goa, but the bakers of bread still exist, if not the original ones, their legacy is being continued by their sons. The bakers are still being referred to as padders. Everything about baking is still the same, ranging from those who mold the bread loaves to the furnaces which have survived the ravages of time. The sound of their arrival and the thud of their bamboo stick can still be heard just like the olden times. Let us look at the next passage. During our childhood in Goa, the baker used to be our friend, companion and guide. He used to come at least twice a day. Once, when he set out in the morning on his selling round, and then again, when he returned after emptying his huge basket. The jingling thud of his bamboo woke us up from sleep, and we ran to meet and greet him. Why was it so? Was it for the love of the loaf? Not at all. The loaves were bought by some Pascain or Bastine, the maidservant of the house. What we longed for were those bread bangles, which we chose carefully. Sometimes it was sweet bread of special milk. In this passage, the narrator recalls that the baker acted as their friend and companion during their childhood days in Goa. The baker used to visit twice a day, once while he was on the round to sell his loaves, and the other time while returning back with his empty basket, having sold all the loaves. It was the sound of his bamboo stick that woke the children up. The children were so excited to meet him and choose from the bread bangles or kanko he made especially for them. While the bangles were for children, loaves were for the adults that were generally collected by the maidservant of the household. Let us look at the next passage. The baker made his musical entry on the scene with the jhang sound of his specially made bamboo staff. One hand supported the basket on his head and the other banged the bamboo on the ground. He would greet the lady of the house with good morning and then place his basket on the vertical bamboo. We kids would be pushed aside with a mild rebuke and the loaves would be delivered to the servant. But we would not give up. We would climb a bench or the parapet and peep into the basket somehow. I can still recall the typical fragrance of those loaves. Loaves for the elders and the bangles for the children. Then we did not even care to brush our teeth or wash our mouths properly. And why should we? Who would take the trouble of plucking the mango leaf for the toothbrush? And why was it necessary at all? The tiger never brushed his teeth. Hot tea could wash and clean up everything so nicely, after all. This passage says that the baker often made a musical entry with his bamboo stick. His one hand supported the basket on his head, while the other banged the bamboo on the ground. He would go house to house and greet the ladies before handing them over the loaves. The parents would scold the children and make them stand aside. But as eager as they were, they would climb a bench or the wall to peep into the basket. They did not even bother to brush their teeth before having those bread bangles, because it seemed an unnecessary effort for them to pluck mango leaves from the branches to use them for brushing their teeth. They considered brushing unnecessary because the hot tea could effortlessly wash their mouth, and they thought that animals like the tiger never brushed their teeth. Let us look at the next passage. Marriage gifts are meaningless without the sweet bread known as the bowl, just as a party or feast loses its charm without bread. Not enough can be said to show how important a baker can be for a village. The lady of the house must prepare sandwiches on the occasion of her daughter's engagement. Cakes and bolinhas are a must for Christmas, as well as other festivals. Thus, the presence of the baker's furnace in the village is absolutely essential. This passage says that bread is an important part of the Goan culture, and it is evident from its presence at every important occasion. From sweet bread at marriages, to sandwiches at engagement parties, and cakes and coconut cookies at Christmas as well as other occasion, makes the presence of a baker in every village very essential. Let us see the next passage. The baker, or bread seller of those days, had a peculiar dress known as the kabai. It was a single-piece long frock reaching down to the knees. In our childhood, we saw bakers wearing a shirt and trousers, which were shorter than full-length ones and longer than half pants. Even today, anyone who wears a half pant, which reaches just below the knees, invites the comment that he is dressed like a padda. This passage says that bakers were known to have worn unique knee-length frock dresses, typically known as kabai. In the narrator's childhood days, he had seen them wearing shirts and pants whose length was shorter than the usual ones. It was a part of their identity, so that even if someone wears that trouser length now, he is said to have dressed like a baker or padda, as was said in olden times. Let us see the next passage. The baker usually collected his bills at the end of the month. Monthly accounts used to be recorded on some wall in pencil. Baking was indeed a profitable profession in the old days. The baker and his family never starved. He, his family and his servants always looked happy and prosperous. Their plump physique was an open testimony to this. Even today, any person with a jackfruit-like physical appearance is easily compared to a baker. This passage says that the baker had a way of making a monthly record of bills on a wall using a pencil and then collecting the money at the end of the month. Baking has always been a profitable profession. The baker's family and workers have always been happy and joyous. The baker was usually fat, which was proof that he had a lot to eat. Even to this day, someone with a well-built body is compared to a baker. Thank you so much for watching. I will be back with a new lesson.